morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh. I am Betsy, Kyra, and Morgan, and I'll be your MC today for this very important service, the Hanamatsuri Service, that commemorates the birth of the baby Buddha. Today we will be celebrating the birth of the baby Buddha, Buddha Shakamuni. This service will be officiated by Reverend Jiko Nakade and assisted by Deacon Amy Jikai Nakade. We would especially like to welcome Cynthia Morris, who's our guest speaker today from Hilo, who's here with her husband, Ed Morris. We would also like to thank Kona artist Mayumi Oda. Are you in the audience, Mayumi? I don't see her, but I think she will be coming, for lending us her baby Buddha Thangka painting. And here's the story of the birth of the Buddha. I even printed it out in great big letters and have been practicing. I know the story, but I want to get it right for you. The Buddha was born in Lumbini Gardens in northern India, which is now Nepal, 2,600 years ago. His name was Siddhartha Gautama, and he was the son of the wealthy and good king Shododana and his wife, Queen Maya. Before the Buddha was born, Queen Maya dreamed she saw a brilliant white light come down on her, and in the middle of this light was a small white elephant. Very beautiful. This elephant of light flew closer to her and closer, and finally melted into her body. Learning of this dream, the wise men announced that there would be a very special baby born, a baby who would become an unusually great person. It was the custom in those days for a woman to go to her place of birth, her parents' home, to give birth. So she started on her way. But feeling the pangs of childbirth that came on her very soon, she stopped in the gardens of Lumbini. And that's where she gave birth to a son. At that time, rainbows appeared in the sky and all around her, and feelings of great peace and happiness spread through the entire kingdom. She and the baby prince returned to the palace. Of course, the king was overjoyed. The baby was named Siddhartha, which means the one who was brought about all good things. In the first few days after his birth, an old hermit named Asita came to visit the palace. For a long time, he gazed at this amazing infant and said nothing. And then he began to weep. Startled, the king asked him why he was crying. And Asita replied, "One reason I'm crying is that I'm old, and I am never going to get to see this baby become the great man that he will become. He may be a great ruler, but if he chooses not to be king, he'll be a great teacher, showing all people how to live with peace and love in their hearts." And that's the story of the birth of the Buddha. Okay, so let's see, what's next? Next, we will have the Sanbo Goa-san, or Song of the Three Treasures, by the Baikako Plum Blossom Choir. Please rise, if you can, when the minister enters the hall and makes her offering of incense. now have the offering of tea by various temple groups and the Hanamatsuri song by the Baikako choir. Group representatives, please gather outside the front door. When your name is called, please come forward to offer an imperial and to ladle sweet tea over the baby Buddha. There are many temple groups. You'll see them all. Enter today. Representing the Daifukuji Tyodan Board of Directors, Barbara Shoshin Bose. Representing the Daifukuji Fujinkai and Project Donna, Joyce Yuko St. Arnaud. Representing the Daifukuji Baikako Plum Blossom Choir, Nichiko Enomoto. Representing the Daifukuji Zazen Kai, Derek Kodo Nakamura. Representing the Daifukuji Dharma Teiki, Will Leite Leach and Makana Nakamura. Representing the Daifukuji Dharma Study Group, Philip Doan Shea. Representing the Daifukuji Happy Strummers and the Soulful Strummers Walking Moai, Raymond Joseph Valtera. Liz Aschenbrenner. Representing the Kona Daifukuji Youth Taiko, Ayako Sasaki. Representing the Daifukuji Jigong Group, Philip Kahuho Hema. Representing the Daifukuji Samu Group, Warren Ikeda. Dharma words will now be offered by Reverend Chico.
On this spring morning in Kona, Hawaii, we have gathered to celebrate the birth of the Buddha Shakyamuni, a flower of humanity who turned the Dharma wheel. May this incense purify our minds, inviting clarity. May these flowers bloom in the gardens of our hearts. May we bathe the infant Buddha with sweet heavenly tea and water the seeds of loving kindness within ourselves and others. May there be harmony and love in our hearts and in our families. May there be kindness in our communities, and may peace and healing in our nation and in the world. We take refuge in the Buddha, we take refuge in the Dharma, we take refuge in the Sangha. Namu Kie Butsu, Namu Kie Ho, Namu Kie So, Namu Shakamuni Butsu, Namu Shakamuni Butsu, Namu Shakamuni Butsu.
Today's Hanamatsuri message will be given by Cynthia Morris, our visiting speaker. Cynthia Morris was born and raised in Hilo, Hawaii. As a teenager, she was a professional musician in Hilo, playing with and arranging wind parts for various bands. She attended California State University at Northridge, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts in saxophone. Cynthia worked as a professional musician in Los Angeles, playing on recordings and television soundtracks, as well as performing in live venues. After graduation, Cynthia worked in the Los Angeles film industry in motion picture films as editing crews. While working in the film industry, she also took place in the LA music scene by playing folk and bluegrass acoustic guitar. In 2010, Cynthia enrolled in graduate studies at the University of California at Santa Cruz, where she earned her master's degree in musicology. Her research included a wide variety of papers, one on Nicola Vincentino's microtonings, licensing in global pop music, and protest music of 19th century Hawaii. Her master's thesis was on the prison songs of Lilio Kalani. Cynthia moved back to the Big Island in 2018 and once again calls Hilo her home. Her upcoming projects include a musical theater piece on Lilio Kalani's imprisonment. She is a member of the American Musicological Society, the Society for Ethnomusicology, and the International Council for Traditional Music and Dance. I'm very proud to present Cynthia Morris. Would you please stand?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
This presentation is on why these English language authors in your hymn books sound kind of Christian. So I do something that's called cross-cultural musicology. And with cross-cultural musicology, it's a little bit different from regular musicology, because what we do is we go much further back in history, and we also look at we take like a 360-degree look at what's going on in society at the time that music is created, and so you get a really good idea on why this kind of music was created. So to unpack this, we need to go back to Japan in the mid-19th century. So at the time, we had the Opium Wars. And the Opium Wars were fought between China and Great Britain. And there were two wars, and China lost both of them. And this brought about this kind of like this little bit of a sense of panic in Japan. There was definite concern there. And of course, a few years later, we have Commodore Perry sailing into Tokyo Harbor, and he points his gunboats at Tokyo, and he demands that Japan open up to trade. And of course, Japan acquiesces, and they end their 200 plus years of isolation, and they open up to trade to the Americans. Now, at the same time, during all this time, you have Japanese people who are traveling the world. They are in the West, they are in Europe and the United States, etc. And they are returning to Japan. And they are reporting on what they're seeing out there in the outside world. And, well, what they're seeing is the Industrial Revolution with smoke belching factories and steamships and railroads crisscrossing continents. And they come back here to Japan, and they have come back to this feudal agrarian society. So all of this combines, and it causes this sense of this existential crisis in Japan, and it brings about this intense pressure for change. And so, in January of 1868, a coup d'etat happens, and this coup d'etat dissolves Japan's feudal system of government, and it brings the Emperor Meiji into power. And this is, of course, the Meiji Restoration. And over the next 20 years, Japan does this complete 180-degree turnaround, and they turn towards the West, and they start to westernize. And one of the things they do is they begin to mimic the West, both socially and politically, and also culturally. So if you just take a look at how the shogun is dressed there in 1867, and then we have Meiji, and Meiji is dressed like a British admiral. This picture is very, well, it was taken after 1873, because in 1873, that was when Meiji cut off his chonmage, his samurai, his top knot. So his hair is now done in Western style. So Japan at this time also starts to mimic the West with their music. So those Japanese travelers who were out there in Europe and all that, they come back to Japan, and while in the West, of course, they had been subjected to like this aggrandizement and deification of composers like Mozart and Beethoven and Bach. And they come back to Japan and they are telling of these so-called complex Western musical compositional techniques like counterpoint and fugues. And oh my goodness, they're like these multi-part harmonies. And then, oh my goodness, there are these, lush orchestrations. And, in the meantime, they come back to Japan. And Japan, of course, has its court music. It has gagaku music. It has their religious music, which is mainly like Shinto. And they also have their theater music, like no drama and kabuki. And of course, they have this wonderful 1,000-year-old musical tradition, minyo music. It's the Japanese folk music. So all of this combined gives the Japanese this sort of like this inferiority complex. They view themselves as culturally primitive and inferior. So this is the Japan of the 1880s. Meanwhile, over here in Hawaii, we've had this big sugar boom going of the 1860s and the 1870s, and there's this big demand for laborers. So of course, the immigrants start to come over to Hawaii. But the thing is that there is this concern for like the safety and the working conditions for these immigrants out there in the cane fields. So in 1886, there was this agreement, this treaty called the Immigration Convention of 1886. And this was this agreement between Hawaii and Japan to look after the workers in the fields and to make sure that they had somewhat decent working conditions. But really, its real purpose was to keep the sugar plantations supplied with cheap immigrant labor. Okay, so like the Japanese start to migrate to Hawaii. Of course, there's the Gun-in-Mono migration in 1868, and then the official migration in 1885. And during that official migration, about 900 migrants come over. And most of these immigrants were from the Hiroshima and Yamaguchi prefectures. And these prefectures were over in Western Japan. And Western Japan was the domain of Nishi Honganji. So we're going to talk a lot about Nishi Honganji because they were quite progressive. And they became responsible not only for creating the music, this really Western music that's in your hymn books, but also for building churches, etc. So now, in Japan, back then as well as today, Buddhism functions mainly for funeral and commemorative services. And because these plantation workers, some of them would die, and they also had family members who would pass away. So there was this need here in Hawaii for ministers. So in 1889, Nishi Honganji sends over Reverend Kagahi, and he arrives in Honolulu in early March 2nd, 1889. And he's there in Honolulu for like about 2.5 weeks. And during that time, just before he leaves, he performs a service in Honolulu. And what's interesting to somebody like me is that that service consisted mainly of sutras that were chanted in Sino-Japanese. So no hymns or anything, okay? So after that service, Reverend Kagahi went over to Hilo. So why Hilo? It's At the time, the sugar plantations had been established mainly on Kauai and here on Hawaii Island. So he came over to Hilo, and when he got there, he leased a piece of land at the corner of Front Street and Puna, Hawaii. And, just so you know, Front Street isn't there anymore because it was taken up by the tsunamis. But if you know where the Mohio Park Bandstand is, it was kind of like right over there. So he leases this piece of land, and he gets a bunch of the plantation workers in the area to come by and to help build this church or temple. And this was the first honganji, built in 1889. And after this was completed, Reverend Kagahi went back to Japan and to report on his progress and to try and get more funding and more ministers to come to Hawaii. And so in 1897 and 1898, Nishi Honganji sent over 2 more ministers, and they built this church in Honolulu on Fort Lane. And seeing that both Hawaii and the United States were dominated by Protestant Christianity, Honganji decides to model themselves on that religion. So, for instance, they purchased the land that they built their churches on, and of course, churches and not temples are built. And they adopt bylaws and charters of incorporation. Pews and lecterns are installed, and they make up this new liturgy that mimics Christian services. And because the plantation workers are working like 6 days a week and they only have Sundays off, they have Sunday services, and they start Sunday school, and they start to sing gathas. So their intent here was to camouflage themselves in Christianity to help the immigrants adapt to this foreign land. So in 1899, Reverend Imamura arrives in Honolulu, and he would eventually become the 2nd bishop of Honpa Honganji, and he would become the most influential Buddhist minister in Hawaii. So Imamura believed that Buddhism could fit in well with the political system of the United States and also work well with democracy. And so in the 1920 plantation strike, Imamura advocated for the workers. But unfortunately, Honganji's support for these workers angered the plantation bosses. And so this led to attacks on the Japanese as well as on Buddhism and Japanese language newspapers and Japanese language schools. So the immigrants that had come to Hawaii, they generally did not speak English. They did learn a second language when they came here, but that second language was Hawaiian. Because in your daily life, you were dealing with and speaking with the Hawaiians, and English was the language of the plantation in the Haimakamaka, the plantation bosses. So like, you had no business talking to them. So one of Imamura's challenges was that the immigrants and their children were converting to Christianity because the Christian churches were offering English lessons. So in September of 1921, Reverend Imamura went over to Hilo to meet with Ernest and Dorothy Hunt. Now, the Hunts were from England, and Ernest, while preparing for ordination as an Anglican priest, decided that he would convert to Buddhism. So he converted to Buddhism, and in 1915, Ernest and Dorothy went across the pond to the United States, and they found out that Hawaii was a place where Buddhism was really dominant in society. So they made their way over here, and Ernest got a job at a plantation up in Kohala. And they were up in Kohala for a little while, and then they moved down to the Hilo area. So that, while they were in Hilo, they were like kind of teaching Buddhism and like teaching English and stuff. So Reverend Imamura comes to Hilo, he recruits the Hunts to go back to Honolulu and join up with the Betsuan over there and start English schools. And so they did. They moved over to Honolulu. And after moving to Honolulu, the Hunts became, they worked to compile a hymnal with the help of another composer named A.R. Zorn. And this hymnal was called the Vadimekum. Vadimekum means go with me. And of course, this is the second edition, 1926. The first edition was actually printed in Hilo in 1924. And I couldn't find that one. This is the only one I could find. The hymns in this book reflect Ernest Hunt's view on Buddhism. And the thing is that he was not a believer in Pure Land, which is the Honganji brand of Buddhism. He followed Theravada Buddhism. And Theravada focuses on individual enlightenment through personal effort and meditation. And so because of this, these songs that are in this hymnal have non-sectarian themes. They're basically fundamental Indian Buddhism themed songs. But they use the imagery of Christianity, which is inserted into hymns that have the harmonic and melodic sensibilities of the West. So when asked to assemble this hymnal, the Hunts drew on what was familiar to them. So many of the songs in this Vadimekum reflect popular Christian sentiment of the time. So with these songs, for instance, some of the songs elevate and deify the Buddha or Shinran by referring to them as Lord Buddha or Saint Shinran. Shinran, by the way, was the founder of the Jodo Shinshu sect. He was the founder of the Honganji sect of Buddhism. And many of the songs also use war imagery. And this war imagery is used to depict like the Buddhist religion. So these ideas were the product of something called Protestant triumphalism, which is the attitude that the Christian God's ideology is inherently superior to all others, and that God has commissioned a culture war, which he has sent his flock to win. So yes, here we have Buddha's Army, which is written by Dorothy Hunt, encouraging everyone to go on out and spread the word. Okay. Now, some of the songs have lyrics that are similar to the original Christian hymns. In other words, they have found hymns in the Protestant hymn book, and they've like sort of brought them over, and some of them they've kind of changed the melody a bit, so they're similar to some of the hymns in the Protestant hymn book. And others will use the same melody, and they have the same lyrics in there, except they've taken out God or Jesus and they've put in Buddha. So it's anyway. What did these songs sound like? I couldn't find any recordings of the songs that were composed originally for this book because well, no one was going around recording the Honganji hymns back in the 1920s or 30s. But I was able to find a performance of one of the hymns, this song, not that song, this song, Be Kindly Light. And the reason I was able to find this one was that it was just taken directly from the Protestant hymn book and put into the Vadimekum. And also it was kind of a popular song at the time, the late 19th century, coming into the early 20th century. So, now most of the songs in the Vadimekum, as well as the songs that are in your hymn book, are written for 4-part harmony. And I don't know if you can, this is just written for 4-part harmony. So I have this performance of this song, and it is by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. And I'm going to play for you just the third verse, because this is the verse where the entire choir comes in. And this will be a good chance for you to hear how some of these songs were originally composed for and how they were arranged, to sound. Because like I said, these songs in your book are really written for 4-part choir. So I think I need to exit this a bit. Okay, so this will be the third verse of Lead Kindly Light. Okay.
Very pretty.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very pretty song. So in 1935, the Hunts were asked to leave Hompa Hongenji, and at that time, they went over and joined the Soto Zen Church over in Honolulu on New Orleans. And when they did that, they brought the songs and the material from the Varimeko over to Soto Zen, and in the years to come, hymnals were published not only for Soto Zen but also for Jodo and Higashi Hongenji. And over the years and decades, many of the songs from the Varimeko were eventually taken out and replaced by other newer materials. And I think that in this current hymnal, I think the only one that still is in there the way that it was originally written is When We See the Golden Sun. So this is how these curious kind of Christian-y songs wound up in your hymn book. Thank you for turning back to Virginia.
And now, the Daifukuji Happy Strummers will sing for us softly through the breezes and planting a seed of peace. The words are on your program, and there's the handout in the middle for planting a seed of peace. Please sing along if you would like to.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Hanamatsuri. While the Happy Strummers are getting ready, I thought I'd say something about the two songs which they'll be sharing today. So the first one, Softly Blew the Breezes, is what we call an oldie but goodie. I remember singing it, attending temple in the 60s, and it may have been sung even before that. So it was a favorite of my parents' generation. And we thought we'd sing it for you today. And the second song is a modern song, Planting the Seed of Peace, which we're teaching the children in the temple, the Dharma Keiki families. And this was composed by singer-songwriter Betsy Rose.
On that song. I am planting the seed of peace. I am planting a seed of peace, a seed of peace on earth. Peace in my land, on the other hand, I am planting a seed of peace. I am planting a seed of peace, a seed of peace on earth. A planet of peace among our seas, I am planting a seed of peace. I am planting a seed of peace, a seed of peace on earth. Peace in my heart, that's where it starts. I am planting a seed of peace. I am planting a seed of peace.
Thank you, happy Strummers. Now, before our egg hunt and our wonderful vegetarian lunch together in the social hall, I have quite a few announcements that might interest you. Thank you to Lorraine, Chitoku, and the Baipako singers and musicians for assisting with this morning's service. Thank you to Avis, Brian, and Amy G. Kai for decorating the Hanamatsuri for today's service, and to all who donated flowers. On Sunday, May 25th at 10 o'clock, a special Memorial Day service will be held, followed by a blessing of the high school graduates of our Sangha. A luncheon will be held in their honor. The keynote speaker for this service will be Reverend Hirosato Yoshida from the Soto Mission of Hawaii in Honolulu. All are welcome to attend. This concludes today's service. Thank you, everybody, for attending,